thank you. It's great to see you all here today, and it's brilliant to share and learn from each other during this event. The Fairness Leadership Panel currently has 22 active members, an equal number of members from Dundee Fight for Fairness, and people who are leaders across the city. We meet 5 times a year, and we create short-term working groups so that we can delve deeper into issues in between these meetings. We host an annual conference where we invite people from local communities, from the third sector, and statutory organisations to discuss, sense check, and feed into some of the issues we've been exploring. The key is identifying what we have influence over, listening to people, and seeking solutions together. The short-term working groups speak to people from communities and frontline staff from across Dundee to hear about the issues and possible solutions. From this, they develop recommendations. And then we take these recommendations back to communities to sense check them. And then together, we take the recommendations to the service managers who would be responsible for delivering on them, to sense check again that these are viable and discuss the actions moving forward. Throughout 2024, the panel has had 3 short-term working groups. I forgot I had a slide. Yeah, I forgot about that. 3 short-term working groups. First on mental health and isolation, fair housing, and pressures on third sector projects tackling poverty. We've now come to the end of our cycle of speaking to communities, listening, and sense checking. And we have a total of 13 recommendations that are quite hard hitting. These recommendations have already been presented to the Dundee Partnership, and in April we'll be going to the City Governance Committee. And then once our report is produced, we'll be taking that to all the different services in the city and beyond. But the other thing that the panel has is a role of accountability. And the panel regularly invites service leads to come and feedback their progress on recommendations and actions. We don't want these things just to be a report that sits on the shelf somewhere in someone's office. We want this to be something that is actioned and actually begins to make change happen. At the whole heart of Dundee Fairness Leadership Panel is Dundee Fight for Fairness, the experts by experience. So we're going to meet a couple of our members of Dundee Fight for Fairness. There's actually quite a few spread throughout. I wonder if everyone's using Dundee Fight for Fairness, can just raise your hand. So we've got a few members here, so please chat to them, find out more about it as we get into the discussion groups. But we're going to hear directly from Daniel and Tammy about their experience of being members of the panel. So I'm going to ask Daniel to come up first. They've swapped over these two, so they want to mess up the pages. Yeah, and Tammy, do you want to come up just now as well? We'll just great, thank you. So Daniel, you and I will just buddy up here. So, Daniel, what does it feel like to take part in the panel?
It's a privilege to be able to take part in something that's actually making a difference in our city. I've been part of other community forums and change groups that I feel like being a part of the Fight for Fairness. And the Fairness Leadership Panel feels like we're able to implement real change within our city. I feel like my opinions and viewpoints are being listened to.
What change do you feel you have been able to make in your role on the panel?
I think what it is. Through the different organisations that I'm working with within Dundee, I feel like I'm bringing a really good insight into the needs and the wants of the community. I feel like that's one of the reasons why this group works so well. We all have such a vast network of and insight into the communities we serve, and bring these voices into the conversations we have with the service providers, like the council, the housing, education, and more. Plus, I can make it more.
It's true. Honestly, without him, it would just be very serious all the time.
I've already been warned twice today. It's not close.
And what difference does it make to you to be part of the panel?
Being,
He's off next, yeah.
being part of the panel has made me more confident in my abilities and it's made me do crazy things like this. I've gotten clarity in what it is that I'm passionate about, and which further incentivises me to fight more for the positive changes within the city. This has helped me develop more relationships with different organisations across Dundee, with a better understanding of what's happening in the city, the good, the bad, and the ugly. For example, in the work I do, I have a lot of understanding of the food situation in the third sector of Dundee. But because of the work through the panel, I have a much better idea of the issues we are facing when it comes to housing, mental health, employment, and many more.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Sarah. So, Daniel has been involved in the Pressures on Third Sector Projects Tackling Poverty working group in the last year. I know that last week he was in part of a group that reviewed the content and communication of the Council's recent budget consultation. We fed that back to the Council as well. So Daniel's newer on the panel, just joined last year, but already right in there already, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Now, Tammy, same questions for you. So, what does it feel like for you being part of the panel?
It feels like I'm a part of something that I can actually try and help change something for the better. It's a very fair process. Like, we're all on, there's no anyone bigger than anyone else, we're all on one level. When I joined, we actually didn't know who anyone was. We all just went in as one. We didn't know who anyone who was working for the council or so it helps us just be ourselves and get to know each other as people rather than you're from that organisation, you're a volunteer. And I actually feel listened to. I always speak, but I never listen to it.
So what change do you feel you've been able to make in your role in the panel?
Right, so I feel like I'm able to give a different look at people in recovery because people have a lot of stigma when it comes to people in recovery, and I want to break part of that stigma and show people we do have brains and we are in the integral part of making change in Dundee and that we do recover. Also, I have a lot of lived experience across the board, not just in recovery. Being a volunteer, I've volunteered for 13 years now, with mental health, cost of living, poverty, and a lot more. So I have across the board experience, and I'm able to speak into a lot of issues that we're trying to tackle. I'm a volunteer with many community projects across the whole city, and I'm able to speak to people differently than service workers do. People feel like they can share things with me, and I help them feel safe and listened to, and I'm able to magnify their voice in the work that we're doing within.
Right. Absolutely, fantastic. And that's absolutely true that these guys bring not just the one voices, but the voices of many other people in local communities. What difference has it made to you, Tammy, to be part of this?
It's given me a lot more confidence in myself and in my voice and speaking out when I see any injustice happening in the city, and I act on it rather than just speaking out. I feel like it can actively make a difference in some people's lives. I really like the way that we approach things, and it's so transparent and out in the open, and it gives me the confidence in the work that we're doing. We get listened to, and that makes all the difference. This made a difference to me because no one looks down on me anymore. So they say, or sees me differently. I'm not a person in recovery. I'm Tammy. I'm a peer. And being included in things and being spoken to and asked my opinion has usually helped my confidence, and it feels very, very empowering.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Tammy's been involved. Tammy's been involved in the Fair Housing Working Group over the past year, and she's also been able to input into the view of the Council's approach to public body debt. And she's been involved in some of the annual reviews of the Council's Fairness and Local Child Poverty Action Plan. I never will forget that's the right word. Is that the right word? I have to look it up every time. So as you can see, the most important thing is Dundee Fight for Fairness. We don't trade off stories. It is about them bringing their incredible experience from across the city. They are connected to so many local communities, and they bring other people's voices and experiences to us. And I think Tammy said a really important thing: people trust them more than they will trust local authority workers. That's not an insult, it's just a fact. And so what they hear is so much more than we could hear. I remember during COVID when we were struggling to get out and hear from people, but actually we just said to them, can you just ask your pals and ask your family what's going on for them? And my goodness, we really heard the reality of life for people in Dundee. We get to reach people who I don't think we'd otherwise reach or hear from. But actually the solutions that we find in the communities, that's where it's at. We're all on this because we care, but actually we don't have the right ideas sometimes. We think we've got the right ideas, but actually the solutions that come from local communities are far more effective and far more powerful and can really transform what we're trying to do. We were just chatting earlier about sometimes people think doing this kind of work means it's going to cost more. There is a little bit of a cost to it because you need to make sure people are looked after. But at the end of the day, what you get back is a million times more. What it means is our services are more effective, they're more focused, we're able to direct our resources better, and we're able to know where it's needed the most and how to make sure that lands better. The work that the panel has been doing for the last few years is we've seen some significant changes. If you want to ask at your tables later of people around the tables who are involved in Dundee, there's been work on public body debt, employability strategy, where's Andy? There's been loads of work in employability strategy, so if you want to ask somebody who's had loads of work done with them from Dundee Fight for Fairness, ask Andy. And also communication from the council. We've done a lot of work around communication through COVID, cost of living crisis, to make sure those messages are landing where they need to land. People come to Dundee Fight for Fairness now to ask for their input because they know they're going to get quality input. That Dundee Fight for Fairness are thinking about everybody, not just themselves. So it's an incredibly effective and powerful piece of work, and we're delighted. And as you can see, they're not shy of laughing, they're not shy of talking straight, and they're also not shy of taking the mickey. We have a rule, I won't tell you what it is, but it effectively is don't take the mickey, but that isn't quite how we say it. However, they ignore that constantly. So, yeah, we're delighted that you're here and you can hear more from these guys as the day goes on, but we also know there's brilliant examples across other parts of Scotland, and we're really looking forward to this afternoon and hearing more. However, before that, we're delighted to have, I'm going to get your title right. So we're delighted to have Chris Burke, Associate Director for Scotland at the Joseph Grimshaw Foundation, and Annie McKenzie, Partnership and Projects Lead at the Joseph Grimshaw Foundation, joining us now to share a bit about the piece of research they did with us over the last year. Thank you.